Good morning. It is a real joy and privilege to be here and to be with you this morning. And certainly it is a blessing to be here at Tahoe, surrounded by the beauty of God's creation. I think this is my fifth time, perhaps my fourth time here at Tahoe. And yesterday afternoon was my first trip to Emerald Bay. And it was certainly worth the trip, as long as it was to get there. It really is just majestic to see what God has created and to see what His artistry has put in place. And as beautiful as the mountains are and the trees are, all things that we don't enjoy in Lubbock, as beautiful as those things are, there's nothing quite so beautiful as what I'm looking at right now. Amen. And that is God's people. Amen. And once again, I would say it is a blessing to be among you. And certainly I hope that something that I will say today will be a blessing to your life and to your faith. This morning, as I woke up and checked my text messages, one of those messages came from my son-in-law saying that my granddaughter had taken a spill and she landed mouth first. And so her teeth had folded back in. And so a trip to the dentist was made, and so for the next few weeks she's going to be on a soft diet, and they'll try and get her teeth to straighten back out. And it hurts not to be there and to be able to comfort her, but she has all the help that she needs. And I'm excited to be here today. I'm excited for the subject which I have been assigned. I also feel a little pigeonholed. And yet, I'm grateful for Carrie assigning me this topic, because I feel it a privilege to be able to speak of my Jesus as the Lord of the nations, because that is indeed who He is. Amen. And if you look on the title slide this morning, you'll see that my text that we're going to be launching from and that we're going to be looking at today comes from the book of Daniel. And so if you have your printed Bible or you have your app in front of you, I would encourage you to open that to Daniel chapter 7. And we're going to be looking into Daniel chapter this morning. But as we prepare our minds for our subject today, I want to begin with a simple and yet I think it a very profound question. Now, I think the answer to this question is one which is very simple to those of us who are in attendance this morning. And I think we're going to find a great deal of unity in our answer today. But there are a great many people that are probably not among us today that are going to find difficulty or would find difficulty answering this question for a variety of different reasons. And the question that I have in mind is, who really rules the world? And as we think about who rules the world, our minds and the minds of our neighbors and the people that we talk to, and perhaps even the answers that would come up within some of our own families, may have a variety of different ideas. Is it the presidents of this world? Is it the parliaments or the congresses of this world? Is the answer to that question the dictators of this world? Is the answer to that question the 1% within this world? Those CEOs and others who seem to have all of the money at their disposal and can seem to do anything that they want to do anytime they want to do it? Or is it something even more powerful than any earthly ruler that people may bring as an answer to this simple and yet powerful and, I think, profound question? We live in a time of political confusion and economic instability and cultural unrest. We live in a nation where people are, I think, asking themselves the question even of who rules our country. And I am not here today, and let me state very, very strongly that I am not here today to speak on things of a political nature. And yet, because we live within a world where politics exist, people naturally try to find the answers to who rules the world within politics itself. And so, because we live within a political society, people by nature look to politics for the answer to who rules within their city, within their county, within their state, and within our country here in the United States. It is just natural for people to try and find their answers in such spheres. And then from a broader perspective, who is ruling within our world? Again, in a political realm within other nations around the world. And then taking that just a little bit farther, whose political system is ruling within our world today and is exerting the greatest influence in our world today? Or perhaps whose system of government ought to be rightfully, judiciously, ethically ruling the world today? And it seems throughout time that different local governments growing into greater regional governments, growing into national governments, and then stretching into empires, have tried to exert their political influence and will over the nations which surround them, and thereby to have their will be done. I hope I've not mischaracterized our world in any way. But that is what I think history certainly demonstrates to us. Empires rise and fall. Leaders come and go. But the question remains, who truly reigns over the nations of the world? Daniel was a Jewish exile living in Babylon. And he had a vision over 2,500 years ago that I think helps us to answer this question today. In a dream, he saw a series of beastly empires but also a stunning divine figure of one who is like a son of man, who is given dominion and a kingdom that would never be destroyed. That vision points us directly to Jesus Christ, who today rules not only over His church, but over the entirety of the world. And so, today, I want us to take a look at these nations that Daniel sees, and I want us to take a look at what his vision helped us to understand, not only about Daniel's day, but also about our own. And so, please stay with me for a few moments as we look at the vision of the Son of Man in Daniel chapter 7. Now, what Daniel sees in this vision is these four beasts, but these four beasts are not the main point of the vision. They are, in many ways, just the background in the vision. And yet they seem to capture our attention because they are the hardest things to be able to describe and to understand from a symbolic point of view. And as we look in Daniel chapter 7 and in verses 1 through 8, we find that Daniel sees this vision in the first year of Belshazzar. And as Daniel relates the vision which he saw, it occurred to him during the night, and the four winds of the heavens were stirring up the great sea. Now this imagery from his vision is one which is very consistent with the prophetic language of the Old Testament, and then is used later on in apocalyptic literature throughout the New Testament, and especially in the book of Revelation. And when we have the winds blowing over the great sea and the waters which are there symbolized, we have chaos, which is the point. Even if we were to think back to Genesis chapter 1, we know that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and the Spirit of God brooded over the waters or over the deep. And that deep was what covered this formless void which we call planet Earth. And everything that God then brought into being was underneath and brought out of that deep. And so everything that Daniel is about to see is earthbound. It is coming from within the earth. And even if we don't understand everything about these four beasts, what we can know about them as we look at the beginning of creation, even into these four beasts, they are of the earth. And like everything else that comes out of the earth, they are temporary. They are here for a season, and then they are gone. And we must always remember that. And so then Daniel begins to describe these four earthly powers. And as he describes these four earthly kingdoms, he sets them up in description as these beasts. First, we have the lion, which is ancient Babylon. And then we have a description of the Medo-Persian Empire, which is like a bear raised up on one side. And then we have the Greek Empire, which is described like a leopard. And then finally this uncharacteristic beast, which is rather terrifying even compared to the other ones. And it is Rome, which is to come much later from Daniel's perspective. And it is much more ruthless than all of the others. Each of them ruled by brute force. They were powerful, but they were also temporary. Each beastly kingdom brought oppression upon God's people. Each brought fear and violence. Their power was beast-like, but it was of the earth, and therefore it was not divine. Now, each of the rulers of these powers sometimes thought of themselves as being sort of divine, and thinking that they had the power of the divine. In fact, one of the rulers, Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, looked over his empire and said, "Is this not Babylon the Great, which I have created?" And what happened to that guy? Yeah, he became like the beast that is described here, eating grass. And God said, "You know what? I can maintain your kingdom while you are out eating the grass like a donkey, and maintain it till you come back to your senses and realize that you're not the one who did all of this, but I did." And then God brought him back to his senses, and his kingdom was just the way it was when God struck him down. And then Nebuchadnezzar said, "I get the message. It's God who does these things." We understand, of course, that the Persian kings thought of themselves as divine. And Alexander the Great and those who followed after him often thought of themselves as divine. And the Roman rulers thought of themselves as divine. But very clearly, they were of the earth. But looking forward, as we look into verses 9 and 10, in the vision which Daniel records, we see the Ancient of Days, who is sitting upon his throne. Daniel sees something different, and he is ushered into the throne room of heaven. And there the Ancient of Days took his seat. And he is taking that seat with his clothing as white as snow, and his hair and his head are like pure wool. This is very different from the beasts which are pictured earlier. He is not from beneath, he is from above. He is not chaotic, he is pure, he is holy, and everything that he does is right and good. And the text says, "Behold, with the clouds," I'm getting ahead of myself. And in the vision that Daniel has, God himself is seated in judgment over these kingdoms. And the contrast is rather striking. God is not beastly, he is holy. And while the nations rage below, God rules above. He is unshaken. He is eternal. Why do the nations rage? The psalmist would write. It is God who sets his king on his throne. Amen. As Daniel continues on in his vision, in verses 13 and 14, we see the Son of Man who is brought to him. Now comes what is truly the heart of this vision. "Behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a Son of Man. And he came to the Ancient of Days, and was presented before him, and to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom." This Son of Man is not a beast, though he comes up from the earth on the clouds. He is fully human, and yet He is one who is also divine. And unlike the kingdoms of the world, his kingdom is everlasting, and his kingdom will not be destroyed. There is a key point that I think that we are to get out of this vision. While empires fall, the Son of Man receives a kingdom which is eternal. If we remember nothing else from this vision, we need to remember this: the kingdom of the Son of Man is eternal. And so it is unlike any other kingdom that has ever existed. I think we need to understand also that Jesus fulfills the vision which Daniel had in Daniel chapter 7. Jesus, during his earthly ministry, liked to describe himself as the Son of Man. It was his favorite term for himself. On more than 80 occasions, Jesus will describe himself in that way. Now, why does Jesus use this term above all others? Certainly, he was worthy of any other term that he might have chosen for himself. He could have called himself the Son of David. He could have called himself the Messiah. He could have described himself simply as Jesus, but the one that predominantly he chose to use was the Son of Man, because he is claiming to be the fulfillment of Daniel chapter 7. He is the one whom God has given all authority and a kingdom. In Matthew chapter 26, when Jesus is on trial before the high priest, and all of the false witnesses have been brought to say all of the slanderous remarks that they have to say about Jesus, finally, in the midst of the court, these words are uttered: "I adjure you." Jesus is placed under oath as to who he is, and this is his reply: "You will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." They tore their robes. They knew what he meant. He was claiming to fulfill Daniel's vision to be the one with divine rule. And they said, it's enough. He deserves to die because he is blasphemed, and now they were going to turn him over to be executed. And so Jesus describes himself as the Son of Man. I would say also that the ascension fulfills the vision of Daniel chapter 7. After Jesus rose from the dead, he ascended into heaven. In Acts chapter 1 and in verses 9 through 11, the apostles are standing there on that mountainside and they are awestruck. And as they watch Jesus go up into heaven, all of a sudden there are these angels standing by their side. And they said, "Ye men of Galilee, why do you stand here looking in this way? This same Jesus who is now taken up from you will return in the same way." And they watched as Jesus was taken up, and the clouds received him out of their sight. That's Daniel chapter 7, coming with the clouds before the throne of God. God has made him both Lord and Christ, this Jesus whom you have crucified, Peter will say a few weeks later on the day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2. Jesus is not waiting to be king. He is already enthroned, and he reigns now at the right hand of God on high. His dominion is over the nations. In Matthew chapter 28, in verse 18, Jesus would say to his disciples, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me." In Revelation chapter 1, in verse 5, Jesus is spoken of from heaven as the ruler of the kings of the earth. And in Philippians chapter 2, verses 9 through 11, we read that every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord to the glory of God the Father. Amen. Do we understand that? Every knee that has ever lived in every part of the earth, and every tongue with every language and including every dialect from every nation of the world will declare that Jesus is Lord and Christ. Amen. He is the King of Kings, and he is reigning now. Amen. So the key point that we have to understand from this is, as I just said, Jesus now reigns as King, and his kingdom is here and will never pass away. Amen. Now, recognizing that, what are the implications of that truth for his church today? First of all, it means that our allegiance to Christ comes first. Because Jesus is Lord of the nations, our allegiance is to him in every facet of our lives. Amen. He is before our families. He is before our jobs. He is before our nation. He is before our political allegiance. I said that I was absolutely not going to be political. And I am not being political. I am speaking of allegiance. I have a great many friends who are Republican Christians and who are Democrat Christians and who are independent Christians. Now, they would not call themselves that. They would say, I am a Christian Republican, and I am a Christian Democrat, and I am a Christian Independent. But to tell you the truth, when I hear them talk, I hear them talk a lot about their party platform and about politics, but I don't hear them talk a lot about Jesus. Amen. And when they vote a straight party line versus what would Jesus think about this particular issue and this particular person. And I'm not trying to be political in that. I'm just saying, is my allegiance to Jesus first?
Amen.
Our brothers and sisters 2,000 years ago knew what it meant to have allegiance to Jesus first. They were expected to go into the marketplace and to pass by the altar to Caesar and to take a pinch of incense and pass a loyalty exam in order to do business in the market for a year, and take that pinch of incense and drop it in the fire and say, Kaiser Kurios, Caesar is Lord.